Hare Krishna and Pranam, dear devotees. So, welcome to our Srila Prabhupada-Acharya series online with His Grace Suresvara Prabhu. So, today we have a very interesting topic. So, I hope you will like it and we'll have questions. So, all of us, we heartily welcome His Grace Suresvara Prabhu by loudly chanting Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. His Grace Suresvara Prabhu ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Gaur Bhaktivinoda ki jai. Jai. Well, welcome back after 6 weeks to our Founder Acharya Essential Series. And this is the second to last lesson 9. It's called Fictional Prabhupads. So we'll go right to that first slide. And so it's kind of a puzzling title, isn't it? What do I mean by fictional Prabhupads? Well, we'll find out shortly. While developing a personal relationship with Srila Prabhupada, it is important to clear up misconceptions we may have about him. Studying Srila Prabhupada's teachings without studying his life and how he lived and applied those teachings can become impersonal, and becoming attached to Prabhupada's personality without studying and following his teachings can become sentimental. Both approaches leave us with a, quote, fictional Prabhupada we need to avoid. So let's look at some examples. We're going to look at 4 what I call impersonal fictions. And what's interesting about these fictions, or these kind of make-believe Prabhupads, is that a lot of them appear to be true. They appear to be nonfiction. But on closer examination, they're exposed as untrue. So the first we're going to look at 4 impersonal fictions and 4 what I call sentimental fictions. So the first impersonal fiction, we can go to the second slide, is Prabhupada is God. Now that's obviously not true. This is the only one, or this is the one that's obviously not true. The others are a little puzzling. But this actually happened. This actually happened in ISKCON's history. So I'll explain that now. And by the way, that picture was taken at Bhaktivedanta Manor, 1973, on the South Lawn, where my godbrother Bhagavad captured so many moods of Prabhupada, and there he's looking very stern and disapproving even. So that's why it fits with the title. Prabhupada is God. That's obviously wrong. But it happened. In the spring of 1970, Srila Prabhupada had encountered a threat to his movement. Excuse me. I'm fighting a little cold here, so I'll muddle through. Prabhupada had encountered a threat to his movement while expanding Krishna consciousness throughout the Americas and Europe. He was meeting some resistance in India. A few spiteful swamis, that means a few envious godbrothers of Prabhupada, were trying to prevent ISKCON from acquiring land in Mayapur, the birthplace of Lord Chaitanya. And worse, they were spreading a minimized view of Prabhupada, which was affecting the faith of some of Prabhupada's top leaders in America. So what was going on was there were a couple of Prabhupada's disciples in India, just a couple, in the late 60s, and in 1970, there was Achyutananda. I think by that time, Jayapataka Brahmachari was there, Achyutananda Brahmachari. They hadn't taken sannyas yet. And sometimes they were staying in Prabhupada's godbrothers' mutts because they had no place, Prabhupada hadn't had a chance yet to build anything. So Prabhupada had them stay with his godbrothers. And from some of these godbrothers, it didn't go well because they were minimizing Prabhupada. And then those devotees were writing letters back to America about what Prabhupada's godbrothers were saying about Prabhupada, and it was affecting the faith of some of Prabhupada's top leaders in America. So to counter the threat, that July, His Divine Grace, this is 1970, actually the month I joined, His Divine Grace formed a governing body commission of trusted devotees whom he would train to manage the movement's worldwide preaching in his absence. So Prabhupada formed the GBC initially as a response to the threat of minimization of his position. And he just wanted to sort of start fortifying ISKCON, protecting it. And they were mostly householders. There were no swamis yet. There was one swami, it was Kirtanananda Maharaj. So Prabhupada's idea was to train them, to take over management per Bhaktisiddhanta and Bhaktivinoda Thakur's vision of how a worldwide movement would go on under the management of a governing body, whom he would train to manage the movement's worldwide preaching after his departure. So after correcting the misled leaders, he deployed 4 of them as sannyasis. This is so bold. These devotees were getting affected, getting a minimized view of Prabhupada, half believing it. So Prabhupada, he just called them into his quarters and gave 4 of them, the ones that were getting the most affected. He gave them sannyas. And he had him hit the road, go out and travel and preach and get out of the house, stop gossiping, stop, wondering about Prabhupada's position. And they did. He deployed 4 of them as sannyasis to travel and preach with full faith in Guru and Krishna. So, but of course, Prabhupada set them straight that, he's the founder Acharya of ISKCON, and Krishna is empowering him to do what his godbrothers could never do because they weren't surrendered enough. They actually destroyed the Gaudiya mission. Only Prabhupada emerged as someone who was willing to pick up the pieces and make a fresh branch of the Gaudiya Sampradaya and carry on. Now, as the young renunciants toured ISKCON America that summer, the gravity of their offense to Prabhupada weighed on them. So they were feeling mortified. Oh my God, we've been getting this, thinking that Prabhupada really wasn't what he thought he was. We were half believing what these envious people were saying about him. So they became very guilty. Mortified at how they had been minimizing his spiritual stature, they began to maximize him, even deify him, sharing scriptural references about the spiritual master being non-different from Krishna himself. Okay, so that was in the spring and summer. And then in late August, the first movement-wide festival happened. It was the first big Janmashtami. And mainly it was American devotees then, but some devotees from Europe came, I think even up from Mexico. And I went too, because I was a brand new devotee in Boston, and the temple president, who was Satsvarupa at that time, Das Adhikar, he was a married man. He took some of us new devotees, and we drove 10 hours in a van all the way from Boston to New Vrindavan, West Virginia, for the Janmashtami Vyasa Puja festivals. Amid the largest gathering of ISKCON devotees to date, there was maybe 100 people. That was huge in those days. There was only a couple of dozen temples. The sannyasis also were there, and they brought with them an apocalyptic message, an earth-shattering message. Here's what they were saying. Prabhupada is God, and because we haven't recognized him, he has rejected us and gone back to India. Without understanding that Prabhupada is Krishna, they said, our chanting is useless. So that was crazy. This is a few days before Janmashtami Vyasa Puja. And half the people were believing it because these were very charismatic devotees, much beloved. And they were, these new sannyasis were speaking to whoever would listen to them under trees and in the temple. So the leaders, of course, weren't buying it. The temple presidents and the newly formed GBC weren't buying it. Their propaganda, the sannyasis' propaganda, so disturbed the devotees that the governing body phoned Prabhupada for guidance. This was the GBC's first ever meeting. Prabhupada had just formed them in July, and when they came to the New Vrindavan festivals, that was the first time they'd even been together. And they didn't know what to think because they were trying to defeat these sannyasis, but the problem was nobody really knew enough. There were hardly any books then. So no one knew enough to defeat anybody. So the arguing just went round and round in circles. So they decided just to call Prabhupada to hear what he had to say. The GBC phoned Prabhupada for guidance. Prabhupada thundered his reply. If you can click on that same slide. And just click. There you go. Yeah. Quote, they have committed the greatest offense. There is only one thing worse than underestimating the Guru, overestimating the Guru. They have said, I am God. Therefore, if I am God, they also can become God. This is impersonalism, unquote. Banishing the offenders from his society, Prabhupada said they could return if they traveled separately and each opened a center, inspired people to take up devotional service and preach the truth. The spiritual master is not God. God is God. The genuine spiritual master is God's authorized representative. Any so-called spiritual master who says he's God is as good as a dog. End of fiction. Now, what happened after that is quite a story too, but if there's time at the end, maybe I can tell you, because I was there. But that was such a relief. Prabhupada said, expel them. So they were expelled from the festival. And then we were able to enter into the actual festival days with a clear heart and situated at Prabhupada's lotus feet. Okay, so Prabhupada is God. That's clearly a fiction. It's wrong. Now the next one is, and we can go to the slide. The fiction, is ISKCON is Srila Prabhupada. Notice how I said that. Is. Although less obvious than the previous fiction, the giveaway is all caps and bold and like that. Is it underlined? Yeah. To equate ISKCON in all respects with Srila Prabhupada repeats the impersonal flaw of oneness without difference. So the sannyasis had it, they were half right. They knew that the spiritual master is non-different from Krishna. We sing that, Sakshat Hari Tvena, right? He's the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Servitor Godhead. He's to be honored as much as the Supreme Lord. Why? Because he's the most confidential servitor of the Lord. Doesn't mean he is the Lord. So similarly, to say just in all respects, ISKCON is Prabhupada, repeats the impersonal flaw of oneness without difference. Prabhupada's flawless statement on the subject was, quote, ISKCON is my body. Maybe you've heard that. And interestingly, that was never recorded, so you can't find a reference for it, a recorded reference. But Prabhupada did say the same thing in other words. We'll see it in a minute. Although that quotation was never recorded, ISKCON is my body, reliable ear witness testimony is abundant. So a lot of devotees who were there when Prabhupada said that can attest to that. And the following Prabhupada letter excerpt says the same thing. Okay, click again. This is a letter to Brahmananda. Quote, you are all my limbs of my body. Same thing, right? Unless you cooperate, my life will be useless. The senses and life are co-relative. They go together. You can't have one without the other. Without life, the senses cannot act. And without sense, life is inactive. So Prabhupada said that early on to Brahmananda, 68 letter. Now, interestingly, Prabhupada also rejected as material this fiction's reverse, that Prabhupada is ISKCON. You can say ISKCON is Prabhupada, or you can also say Prabhupada is ISKCON. And it sounds good, superficially, but Prabhupada, in another time and place, rejected that. And here's the quote. Quote, suppose if I say, I am everything in this my institution. Does it mean I have lost my personality? No, no. If somebody says that Bhaktivedanta Swami is everything, does it mean I have lost my personality? That's a material understanding. You know who Prabhupada said that to? He said it to some students visiting Bhaktivedanta Manor in 1973. It wasn't even his disciples. I'm not sure how the subject came up, but so as ISKCON's founder Acharya, Srila Prabhupada, of course, is certainly ISKCON. At the same time, everything in ISKCON doesn't equal Srila Prabhupada, our society's life and soul. As the philosopher Emerson once observed, quote, an institution is the lengthened shadow of one man. So ISKCON is nothing more or less than the instrument Prabhupada created to preach. So it's his energy. But just like with Krishna and his energy, everything is Krishna in one sense. But you can't just take a piece of Krishna's energy, you know, like say somebody's old shoe, and put it on an altar and say that's God. No, that's Krishna's energy. You don't worship the energy as God. You worship the energetic source as God. So Emerson's phrase or observation is very wise. Quote, an institution is the lengthened shadow of one man. It's a reflection of Prabhupada's desire, of his energy to preach. And it's very important. But it's all coming from Prabhupada and the Parampara, and ultimately from Krishna. Okay, so ISKCON is Prabhupada, is a fiction because it's only half right. And here's another similar one. Let's go to slide 4. There we go. That's good. Just that far. The fiction is the GBC is Prabhupada. All right. And there's a slide of Prabhupada walking with some of his leaders. I'm not sure if it's Mayapur or Vrindavan. I think it's probably Vrindavan. So this fiction betrays an incomplete understanding of the first item Srila Prabhupada declared in his will. So let's look at the first line of Prabhupada's will. Click. Yeah. You ever study Prabhupada's will? This is the first thing Prabhupada said. Quote, the governing body commission, GBC, will be the ultimate managing authority of the entire international society for Krishna consciousness. It doesn't say the GBC is Prabhupada, but Prabhupada deputed them to manage the society. That's the first line of his what's called Declaration of Will in June 77. Now, a few weeks after Srila Prabhupada signed his will, he called for his personal secretary in the middle of the night. That happened to be Tamal Krishna Maharaj, whom, as you know, or you may know, was with Prabhupada from March all the way to the end of November that year. And after Prabhupada, even after Prabhupada signed the will, he was worried about ISKCON and will it survive his physical demise? So he called for his personal secretary in the middle of the night. The secretary's diary tells what happened next. So Tamal Krishna Maharaj, as you know, kept a diary. It's called TKG's diary. It's in the database. And TKG records under that day what happened next. Quote, he, meaning Prabhupada, could not sleep. Thinking of the will had kept him up. And here's what TKG reports that Prabhupada said to him. Amongst the GBC, have you selected one after me who will succeed? That was kind of a loaded question because Prabhupada always made it clear that he had faith in us collectively, but not in any one of us individually. Our strength was in our collective cooperation. So Tamal passed the test by replying. He says, I replied that we felt that we should manage together as a group, that none of us was more qualified than the others. And Prabhupada replies, yes, each of you can be Acharya of your zone. So that's Acharya with a small a. Acharya, yes, but not the founder Acharya. That's Acharya with a big A. A crucial distinction it would take the GBC years to officially assert. So that's what happened after Prabhupada left, due to immaturity and also some personal ambition. Instead of following Prabhupada and working cooperatively, the people who were initially selected to carry on the parampara, there was 11 of them, they began to accept worship on a level of a founder Acharya. And they began to treat their zones, that Prabhupada said, you can be Acharya of your zone. They began to treat them like their own kingdoms. And it was a mess. It just almost destroyed the movement. It broke the unity. After Prabhupada's passing, although some ISKCON zones continued to thrive, regional imitations of His Divine Grace's singular position sometimes turned the zones into cult-like kingdoms. The offenses devastated many, gurus and disciples alike. After the imitation had sufficiently abated, the GBC began to consider more deeply Prabhupada's mandate for the body. So what did Prabhupada actually want the GBC to do? At last, in March 2013, so this is like, 47 years after Prabhupada's disappearance, the GBC had recovered enough from the imitation of Prabhupada's position, and also asserting his position as founder Acharya. It wasn't until like 9 years ago. In March 2013, the GBC published its matured understanding of the body as the society's, quote, ultimate managing authority. So what does that mean? Here's what the GBC came out with as a resolution in 2013 and what that means. I'm just quoting an excerpt here from the resolution. Quote, when we use the word authority in the context of the managerial structure, we do not mean an absolute infallible authority, such as the authority of Scripture or Prabhupada, who was beyond the 4 defects, but the mandate to organize the preaching movement so that it is aligned with the instructions of Srila Prabhupada. That's really all Prabhupada wanted them to do. Make sure that the movement was on track with his life teachings, mood, and mission, not to imitate him. Prabhupada is still the supreme authority in ISKCON. His Vani, his everlasting Vani. So again, the GBC is Prabhupada is a fiction because it is incomplete, recognizing the oneness, but ignoring the difference between ISKCON's absolute founder Acharya and its ultimate but relative managing authority, the governing body commission. And if you've ever studied the GBC itself on their website, you can, if you want to look at their resolutions over the years, you can see how they change their mind a lot. And so it's evidence right there. It's historical evidence that they're not absolute in their deliberations and their resolutions, but they do the best they can. And then they take input from the devotees. That's why they created the body I'm on now. It's called the Sabha, which means it's an advisory group. They also have their Shastric Advisory Committee. They have their deputies to vet the proposed resolutions. So they know they need help. And they're not above the law. They have to follow their own resolutions. Okay. So far we have Prabhupada as God, ISKCON is Prabhupada, the GBC is Prabhupada as fictional, impersonal fictions. And here is the fourth fiction we're going to look at today. This is by no means an exhaustive list, but it's some rather infamous fictions that have happened and still happen in Prabhupada's movement. And let's go to slide 5. Yeah, fiction. Prabhupada is the guru only of his initiated disciples. There you have a famous photo that my god sister Vishaka Mataji took during this 1974 San Francisco Rath Yatra, Golden Gate Park. Prabhupada is the focus of all those leaders there on the cart with him. And I mean, I know those people, and they're very strong personalities, and they have very different natures. And, you know, on their own, they would probably not even be friends. But for Prabhupada's sake, they were cooperating there. And they were, because he was the center. There's an example, Prabhupada's the center during an ecstatic kirtan. So Prabhupada is the guru only of his initiated disciples. That's wrong. A hangover from ISKCON's zonal Acharya nightmare, this impersonal fiction arose from ignorance of the founder Acharya's personal, foundational role in the lives of all generations of his followers, not just, you know, the 4,780 some ex-hippies that he initiated in the 60s and 70s, but he's everybody's foundational guru. In 1994, as Srila Prabhupada's centennial year was approaching, the GBC began to present a more definitive understanding of Srila Prabhupada's position by passing its first Founder Acharya resolution. So the resolution began as follows. So let's look at slides 6 and 7. Go to the next. Yeah, okay. So here's the, we're just going to look at the first item of this resolution. Quote, Srila Prabhupada is the foundational Shiksha Guru for all ISKCON devotees because he has realized and presented the teachings of the previous Acharyas of the Brahma, Madhva, Gaudiya, Sampradaya appropriately for the modern age, unquote. So that was passed in 94 in March. And then I have a godbrother who was there some 5 months later for Prabhupada's Vyasa Puja Day in Mayapur. And I'll give you a little anecdote here. So the day of Prabhupada's Vyasa Puja arrived, and as the sun rose outside the temple, you know, meaning the same temple that's there now, not the TOVP, but the temple we've been worshiping in for many years. As the sun rose outside the temple, a Prabhupada initiate was chanting on his beads. So a godbrother of mine was chanting in the courtyard, actually, right? You know, where you get the Mahaprasad and there's Tulsi and it's marble floor. So he was chanting on his beads, japa. But then when he was chanting in that little courtyard, he noticed a young devotee had stopped chanting to have a morning snack. Tactfully, the elder approached the younger. Quote, oh, Prabhu, maybe you didn't know. We're fasting till noon today for Srila Prabhupada's Vyasa Puja. Squinting upward, the snacker shot back. Quote, you say that because Prabhupada is your spiritual master. He's not my spiritual master. Unquote. And with that, he resumed his snack. So that shocked my godbrother. Incredulous, the Prabhupada initiate didn't know what to say. So he just walked away, thinking, I guess no one told him about that Founder Acharya resolution, which was passed right where that Brahmachari was living, right in Mayapur. To give staying power to its legislation, my godbrother was thinking, the GBC needs to follow up with education. So that was 94. And fortunately, education is happening more these days. So to continue our lesson, let's dispel some sentimental fictions about Srila Prabhupada. So those are the 4 impersonal fictions. And now we're going to move on to sentimental fictions, slide 8. The first sentimental fiction we call, you want to click there to the next slide? Oh yeah, you didn't. Okay. Yeah, slide 8, the next one. Hello, Giriraj, there you go. Okay, it's called Illusory Prabhupada. So this fiction draws its title from ISKCON educator Borijan Das's account of what happened while he and his wife, Jagatarini Dasi, were pioneering Krishna consciousness in Hong Kong. Yeah, they were all alone in Hong Kong. To attract Chinese people to Krishna in the early 1970s, Prabhupada had allowed Borijan and Jagatarini to adjust their appearance and dress. As students started coming to their evening programs, more adjustments followed in their food, the music, their mood, and their decor, how they were decorating their apartment, which in turn attracted more guests. The Chinese were becoming devotees. As they adapted their outreach, however, Borijan and Jagatarini also began to neglect their spiritual practices. So when they went to Hong Kong at first, they were really fired up. They were working during the day. I think, what were they doing? They were selling things. They were selling, I forget exactly. I think they were selling Persian rugs or something. Anyway, they had jobs to support themselves. And then the students, of course, were busy with their studies, and then they'd come in the evening. So as they began to stay up later and later with the students, then they began to get up later and later before they went to work. And whereas before they had a morning program, well, I'll just read here. Resting and rising later, they were chanting Hare Krishna without the support and focus the quiet early morning hours provide. They found themselves too busy to study Prabhupada's books, and material desires began to re-enter their hearts. But, flush with success, they imagined they still had Prabhupada's approval. All Prabhupada had done was to tell Borijan, you could keep a little hair, if that'll help you be a little less, shocking or stark to the students. But they began to adjust a lot of things. And they weren't, and they knew they were getting results in the short term, because the students were getting really interested in Krishna consciousness. But at the expense of their own Krishna consciousness. They were not doing the program that Prabhupada had provided us all, those essential practices that the morning program provides. Chanting Hare Krishna, hearing the Bhagavatam, worshiping the deity, living in a sacred place, which means you can make your own apartment a sacred place with the right sacred sound and sacred images. And they didn't have any other association, so they had to play tapes of Prabhupada. But they were neglecting all that. They were just resting late, rising late, rushing to work, and then, after work, they'd kind of go to the beach and mumble their rounds, which was not good at all. Then, one fine day, an aerogram arrived, one of Prabhupada's famous pale blue aerograms that would float in. In 2 weeks, Prabhupada would be arriving in Hong Kong, his secretary wrote, so get ready. Now, by the time Prabhupada arrived, Borijan and Jagatarini had prepared a beautiful rose garland. They actually hired somebody to make a beautiful rose garland and arranged a fancy hotel room. After picking Prabhupada up in a Rolls Royce, they even rented a Rolls Royce, they expressed to Prabhupada how Prabhupada how wonderful it was to see him. Turning to Burijan, Prabhupada was grave. Quote, "What is your morning program?" Prabhupada always knew where we were at. You know, they were trying to, they putting on a big show, a big fancy rose garland, a Rolls Royce to pick him up. They got him a fancy hotel room in the Hong Kong Hilton. But Prabhupada wasn't fooled. The first thing he does when he's in the car, he turns to the Burijan and says, "What is your morning program?" And then Burijan says, "Well, Prabhupada, we don't really have so many guests in the morning right now, so we usually don't have much of a morning program." Prabhupada disapproved. Quote, "Guests may or may not be coming, but why don't you have a morning program? Whose disciple are you?" Phew, Prabhupada just cut right through all the fog. Whose disciple are you? Shaken awake, Burijan realized he had become a disciple of illusion. So click the next. There we go. Yes, this is what Burijan records in his book, My Glorious Master. Quote, "I had been imagining a Prabhupada that allowed a compromise of purity and Krishna conscious practices. When I was suddenly confronted with the real Prabhupada, the illusory Prabhupada dissolved like mist after sunrise." Prabhupada, as he himself said, was, quote, 90% liberal, but that other 10% was strict, unquote. So despite his disciples' preaching success, Prabhupada knew if they continued to neglect their spiritual practices, they would gradually succumb to the Lord's illusory energy. To avoid becoming illusory disciples of an, quote, illusory Prabhupada, we need to continue living in the clear light of his protective instructions. So that's the first sentimental fiction, illusory Prabhupada, I call it. And the next slide. Yes, I call it figurehead Prabhupada. There's the Queen who passed away not long ago. And there's Prabhupada. We don't want Prabhupada to become a mere figurehead like the Queen was. Reigning over 70 years, Queen Elizabeth II became England's longest-serving monarch, and perhaps the most popular one too, as the adoring crowds on her Jubilee tours attested. Yet the pious Queen had no real authority over her people, no parliamentary power like the Prime Minister. Elizabeth's influence was only sentimental because, like almost all monarchs today, she was a figurehead. By contrast, when Srila Prabhupada toured ISKCON as its founder Acharya, he commanded absolute authority over his disciples. He did this by the transcendental knowledge he revealed, as well as his own endearing example of pure devotional service. Keen to inspire all generations of his followers, Prabhupada took steps to protect his foundational role in ISKCON. One step was the introduction of his daily Guru Puja. So now I tell a little story before, don't click anymore yet. In April 1974, after one of his morning walks on Bombay's Juhu Beach, Prabhupada went up to the temple as usual to offer his respects to the deities. At the time, the devotees would offer flowers, both to the deities and to Prabhupada. That's what they did during Greet the Deities. Prabhupada and the devotees went up to the altar and they offered flowers, and then the devotees would turn and just make circles and offer flowers at Prabhupada's feet. But one morning in April 74, in plain view of the altar, Prabhupada sat on his dais, his Vyasasan, to receive full worship, with his disciples singing Shri Guru Vandana, a traditional Bengali song glorifying the Guru. So Prabhupada taught them what we know today as the Guru Puja song, Shri Guru Charana Padma, Shri Guru Vandana, by Narottam Das Thakur, in full view of the deities. Although there's an injunction in Nectar Devotion that you shouldn't worship anyone else before the deity. But Prabhupada to make a point to protect his position as the founder Acharya in full view of the deities who must have been ecstatic to see Prabhupada being worshipped by his disciples, introduced this song. And we do that today, daily, every day. And everybody offers flowers, and then we sing the song. The song praises pure service to the Guru as the way to obtain the full mercy of God. Okay, you can click now the rest of that slide. Since Prabhupada was the only Guru, so let's see. Yes. It's too small for me to read. Maybe Giriraj Prabhu, can you read that slide?
Yes, Prabhu. The Guru, especially Jagat Guru, is not like a family priest for performing ritual ceremonies, nor is he a figurehead appointed by the institution without real presence in the hearts and minds of his followers. Rather, he is the core of his followers. The very being, one second, this last one I can't read. Okay. A real presence in the hearts and minds of his followers. Rather, he is the core of his followers, being very being. He is my Lord, birth after birth.
Right. So we're singing Chakudan Dilo Jay, Janme Janme Prabhu say. Now, for almost all of us, Bengali is not our first language, but even for the people who know Bangla, it's not to be taken mechanically that he is my Lord, birth after birth. He's the founder Acharya. That's the level of guru that's everybody's guru, the Jagat Guru. So Prabhupada is introducing this song early on to protect that position, not out of ego, not out of vanity, right in front of the deities, he's asking people to worship him. So since Prabhupada was the only guru in ISKCON when he introduced that song, his first followers, that's us, my generation, didn't realize its full import. Today, as successive generations of gurus and disciples come together daily to sing to Prabhupada, the significance of his position as our founder Acharya, the Jagat Guru, continues to expand. Far from being a mere figurehead without real presence in the hearts and minds of his sincere followers, Prabhupada lives in the core of their very being. Janme Janme Prabhu say, he is my Lord, birth after birth. Only our failure to follow Prabhupada's teachings will leave us with a sentimental figurehead Prabhupada, similar to the next despairing fiction. So that leads us to the next fiction, and I think this is the last one. Yeah. Okay, click. Slide 10. Yeah, maybe knock off that. Can you knock off those words? Yeah, or maybe no. Yeah, okay, good. So it's called Gone Forever Prabhupada. On July 16th, 1975, at a packed press conference in Berkeley, California, a reporter challenged Srila Prabhupada. Quote, what will happen to the movement when you die? Quote, I will never die, Prabhupada replied. I shall live in my books and you will utilize, unquote. If Prabhupada's reply sounded defiant, it was also an invitation. To know Krishna and transcend death, anyone could read and apply the knowledge he was translating and explaining in his books, especially his followers, who rested, as Prabhupada wrote, through the night. The problem, he would chide them, is that they didn't read his books, where he was making himself most available. As inspirational as Prabhupada's personal presence was, his writings speak of a deeper intimacy by following his instructions. Indeed, this was his own experience while executing the order of his spiritual master. Although he was only with Srila Bhaktisiddhanta perhaps a half dozen times, Prabhupada always felt him to be right by his side. Okay, click. And Giriraj Prabhu, we can read that one.
There is no difference between the spiritual master's instructions and the spiritual master himself. In his absence, therefore, his words of direction should be the pride of his disciple. Chaitanya Charitamrita Adi Leela 135.
So his words, in his absence, the word should be the pride of the disciple. And in Prabhupada's case, because he's the founder Acharya, with a capital A, his words of instruction should be for everyone, all generations of his followers. Although Prabhupada's form and initiations were certainly divine, it is his everlasting instructions that sustain us over time. Quote, he lives forever by his divine instructions, and the follower lives with him, unquote. Quote, living still and sound, Prabhupada will now dispel one more forever fiction. So, gone forever is an illusion, and Diksha Guru, here's the next one. Diksha Guru forever, Prabhupada. So next slide. Yeah, Diksha Guru forever. Notice I didn't say Ritvik, but I'm just giving, because Ritvik's a perfectly good word. It's just been politicized and abused. So I just defined it, what it means. Diksha Guru forever Prabhupada, that's a fiction. This sentimental fiction arose in the 1980s as a reaction to the zonal acharyas, many of whom were imitating the position of the founder Acharya. But to protest guru abuse by claiming the founder Acharya appointed himself as everyone's perpetual Diksha Guru betrays ignorance of Prabhupada's consistent teaching. So let's look at an example of the teachings. Click. There we go. So this is in a letter, famous letter. Quote, this is the law of disciplic succession. I want to see my disciples become bona fide spiritual master and spread Krishna consciousness very widely. That will make me and Krishna very happy, unquote. So he wanted us to all grow up and be gurus, not to imitate him, not to try to replace him, but to simply carry the movement forward. That's all. Also, in a lecture in May 1976 in Honolulu, Prabhupada declared, quote, because people are in darkness, we require many millions of gurus. He didn't even put a figure on that one, just millions of gurus to enlighten them. Therefore, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's mission is, he said, this is Prabhupada, that, quote, every one of you become guru. Now, if you say, but I have no qualification, how can I become guru? And Prabhupada, playing the part of Mahaprabhu, says, there is no need of qualification. Still I can become guru? Yes. How? Whoever you meet, you simply instruct what Krishna has said. That's all. You become guru. In other words, there's no need to sentimentally, and by the way, illegally, appoint Srila Prabhupada as everyone's perpetual Diksha Guru, when all his disciplic descendants already have him as their founder Acharya, their foundational Guru. Blessed are the Gurus, Shiksha and Diksha, who enrich, enhance, and deepen that foundational relationship we all have with his divine grace. Okay. And we're going to end with there's an audio clip in this slide. If it's going to work, we'll see. So go to the next slide, just the first, without clicking too much. Yeah, don't play that yet. Don't play that. Just go to the other parts of the, yeah, there's Prabhupada. And I think you can go one more click up in the right corner. Yeah. Okay. Okay. Yeah, don't click on that yet. But there's Prabhupada. He's giving nectar devotion lectures in Radha Damodar, in Vrindavan, Seva Kunj. And he's revealing at one point, I think it's October 23rd, can't quite read it, but the mood of the guru. So see if you can click on the icon, Prabhu, and we're going to hear Prabhupada. See if that icon, if you can Yeah. If you can click on that icon. See the audio icon? And then, yeah, get that. Yeah, there you go.
Can you hear, Prabhu?
Can you hear?
I can hear.
Okay, I can't hear it, but you guys can hear it.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji Tanat Pranam. Prabhu, you will have to reshare the screen with audio enabled.
1 second. So,
Yeah, just play it over.
yes, Prabhuji, 1 second.
No, still cannot.
That's a shame. Well, anyway, you want to read it, Giriraj Prabhu?
Yes, Prabhu. A spiritual master takes his disciples as his spiritual master. That is a position. He thinks that Krishna has sent me so many spiritual masters. He does not think himself as a spiritual master. He thinks himself their servant because they have to be trained. Krishna has sent.
As appointed.
1 second. Krishna has appointed him to train them. Therefore, he thinks himself as a servant of the disciples. This is the position.
Yeah, that's the real mode of a real spiritual master. He doesn't think he's the master. He thinks they're his disciples. He's the servant of them. So it's ultimate humility, and it's ultimate mastery too, because that's why we wanted to follow Prabhupada, because he was always serving us. He was working harder than anybody. And so, well, try to play it. It would be nice if we could get Prabhupada's voice here.
We're not able to get Prabhuji.
Okay, I'll have to work on that. I don't know why. Okay. Yeah, so that was quite a revelation. That's the best concise definition I know of the mood of a genuine and bona fide spiritual master, that he thinks he knows he's the servant of the servant, even of his own disciples. And that was Prabhupada's humility and hard work and example of spreading Krishna consciousness all over the world that made us his first generation of his followers into. We just wanted to follow him and do whatever we wanted. Therefore, we were able to explode the movement all over the world because of his endearing example. So full immersion in our founder Acharya's life, teachings, mood, and mission is the best prevention and cure for all kinds of, quote, fictional Prabhupads. And then I have a little transition here. Unencumbered by impersonal and sentimental misconceptions about Srila Prabhupada, in Lesson 10, we'll look at how to cultivate our own personal foundational relationship with his divine grace as his eternal loving service. So, as long as we have a little time for questions, so please ask away. It's a different kind of lesson where we identify just misunderstandings about Prabhupada. We exorcise them. We cast out demons, so to speak, sentimental and impersonal misunderstandings.
Yes, Prabhu. Thank you, Prabhu. Thank you so much. It's a very unique session,
Yeah.
very much necessary, I would say, on each part. And I still think, I was speaking to a senior devotee and I was saying that minimizing Prabhupada position, it still has the undercurrent in ISKCON. That undercurrent still runs of big to that poison from the God brothers. And,
well, our own poison too, because after Prabhupada left, then there was a lot of imitation of him. And we're still recovering from the fanatic focus just on the Diksha Guru, who's so important, but he's not the founder Acharya. So we've got to really make ISKCON more Founder Acharya centered. Otherwise we'll continue to be cliquey and not be as united as we could be. Yeah.
And also same Prabhu that we see SP Srila Prabhupada only as all in all himself, that he, we may say, well, he's not God, but we take him all in all as an independent cult figure, that also.
Oh, you mean the Prabhupada or the Guru or what?
Both, Prabhuji. I would say more for the Guru also, because that zonal Acharya honeymoon also, is prevalent in many parts of the world.
Yes, it's still very much alive.
Yes, it's very much alive that we see one area, one zone, and one Acharya. And, it is very much there. And also seeing, the Guru also in itself as an independent cult figure, that
I see.
Independent of Prabhupada, is independent of Krishna, because the Indians are sentimental. We just think, he in itself is just everybody. And many times we see, Prabhuji, the quote Prabhupada has given for a Acharya or for himself, they superimpose it on the Guru,
Right.
That, what I think by the time of death, if I think about you, then what? Then Prabhupada says, yeah, that is fine. Then they show those quotes to the neophyte devotees and say, this is the position of the Guru, that just Guru in itself is everything. This Guru's instruction, Guru, that we don't see. It is quite sad. And also SP Srila Prabhupada being, Guru of his only his disciples, also being there, because also carried over for that Acharya thing, that my Guru is Guru, and Prabhupada, he's a gone era, like this. And
it's very interesting. It's very interesting, Prabhu, that this is especially common in India, that people think like this. But it's also India that gave us the Madhvas and the Ramanujis, and they don't think like that. If you go to Udupi today, it's very clear they're all Madhvites. And they love their Shiksha and Diksha gurus because those people bring them closer to Madhva, their foundational guru. And similarly in Sri Rangam, they know that Ramanuja is the main person in their life, and they love their Shiksha and Diksha gurus because those people enhance their relationship with Ramanuja. So it's strange that in ISKCON, especially in ISKCON India, we've noticed this goes on, this kind of cult-like regard for the Guru as the all-in-all, even more than the Founder Acharya, pushing the Founder Acharya into the background.
Yes, Guruji. So it is, like I said, it is lack of education. Also, I think that whole thing of Acharya, zonal Acharya system, still being carried over. And, not so much about the Guru, but it's a neophyte disciples who put all these theories and the Bhagavad path. And we have seen in the past also, Guruji, this Bhagavad path, Tirath path, whatnot. And, then spreading stories that who Krishna himself comes and eats, or somebody rather is coming in the dream. And they just, spread this, stories about the gurus, being in direct touch with Krishna or Srimati Radharani or whatnot. And,
it's very sentimental.
Yes.
And it's dangerous because it's going to split. I mean, think if that's true, if true, that we have just sentimental understandings of our Diksha and Shiksha gurus, and we're sort of making them extensions of our own ego, right?
Yes.
That what happens when the guru disappears? Then the disciples, the God families, they think, well, actually, we're the best, and we don't need ISKCON. We're going to just have our own little cult here. So Prabhupada didn't want that, he foresaw that. So that's why he tried to protect ISKCON by doing things like establishing his own Guru Puja is for everyone.
Yeah. Even there we heard, Prabhuji, even senior Prabhupada disciples saying that Guru Puja is not for Prabhupada, it is for your own Guru. You know, there's quite.
Guru Puja every morning we do?
Yes, Prabhuji.
No, but we're singing to Prabhupada. He's right there on the Vyasasana, either in his Murti form.
Yes,
Even
Prabhu.
you're saying even Prabhupada initiates say that.
Yes, Prabhu. But like I said, that
Not outside India, believe me. That must be an India thing.
Outside India, Prabhu.
Yeah, outside India they say that too.
No, not outside India, but the gurus who are outside India saying that Guru Puja is only for Guru. It is, you don't know. They are saying that, I heard that interview that Prabhupada disciple saying, you people don't know, it is, you are sentimentalists, you're thinking Prabhupada, but it is about the Guru. It is not about Acharya. It is for your Guru. You know.
Oh,
so,
that's Mangalarti. That's Gurvastakam. That's the generic Guru song.
Yes.
Then you can do that. But at Guru Puja, it's specifically started by Prabhupada as a part of our program to recognize his position. And if people are saying that, that's really bad. That's, you know, there's so many, that the whole Guru disciple culture in ISKCON, it's so unsettled, and we still needs a lot of work. And that's why there's so much of divisiveness still in ISKCON over so many issues. It's because the basic issue, Guru Tattva, is not settled. And it's a shame to hear. I've never heard that. I don't think a godbrother of mine would dare say that to me. But if he's saying it to others, then that's got to be stopped. It's really up to the people in those positions of leadership, whether guru or sannyasi or GBC, to make it clear to their dependents what the truth is. So if they themselves don't understand the tattva, then we need more education. They're the first to be educated because they're the influencers. The influencers have to be educated. That's why we have guru training courses now, just starting finally, you know, because if the head doesn't get it, then certainly the rest of the limbs won't get it either.
Yes, true.
We have a lot of work to do.
And I have a suggestion, Prabhuji. You add one more slide, which should say, Prabhupada said, you know, what all goes in the name of Prabhupada. You should add a slide, Prabhuji.
Well, let's go to that last slide. I think that's what I tried to say. Do we have a yeah, we had Prabhupada say it. Maybe if people heard him say it, yeah, that slide is so powerful. I mean, when you hear Prabhupada say it, that's the mood of a bona fide spiritual master. Try it again. It's not playing, huh?
Can you hear
maybe
it?
drag it. Oh, there we go. You're hearing it?
They can't hear on the Zoom.
Okay.
So,
all right.
No, I was not saying this, Prabhuji. What I was saying that people speak so many things. Prabhupada said this, but
Right,
half the things Prabhupada never said. You
Yeah.
know? So I meant in that manner, that what all goes in the name of Prabhupada said this, Prabhupada, you know. So nobody knows what Prabhupada said and what Prabhupada didn't say, you know.
They got to study what Prabhupada said. That quote is so powerful. That's what Prabhupada said about the guru. That's how he thinks of himself. So if any guru thinks that he's the one that's being worshipped at Guru Puja every day in ISKCON, that's wrong. And he hasn't. That person shouldn't even be a guru. He should be defrocked. He should be taken down. This is wrong. Okay.
So
people have to know what Prabhupada actually said. So we're past the hour. We have a little more time, or is it too late where you are?
No, we can ask Prabhuji because we discussed each slide. So Hare Krishna, devotees, do we have any questions that we wish to ask Guru Prabhuji on the Guru Tattva, especially within ISKCON? We can ask. We have time for one question or two questions.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Please accept my humble obeisances.
Obeisances.
Prabhu, it is more of an appreciation that I wanted to do. Thank you so much, Prabhuji, for the session. And I personally really like that section of illusory Prabhupada, where we tend to make our own things that, okay, this is okay to do because I am at this level, and Prabhupada would also be okay to do with this because I am thinking that, yes, that really hit me and it really went to my heart, and I really wanted to thank you for that. And also that part of Gone Forever Prabhupada or a figurehead Prabhupada. So that was also very wonderful, Prabhuji. So thank you so much. And it sometimes get little bewildering to understand Guru Tattva. And like I was discussing with Giraj Prabhu the other day, and we were having one class, and devotees were having questions on this only, on Guru, and then we were having a discussion that it becomes sometimes very difficult to understand this Tattva Guru. And but thank you so much for the session, Prabhu.
Well, the reason, I mean, thank you, Srila Prabhupada, for trying to tell us how to apply Guru Tattva in ISKCON. The reason it's so confusing is because the head of our society, the governing body commission, themselves are of a mixed mind about this. And they keep avoiding really nailing it down. You know, how we're going to apply Guru Tattva in ISKCON. Jiva Goswami Prabhupada, he said of all the tattvas, you know, the tattva, the 6 tattvas, the Shat Sandarbhas, it's the most inconceivable tattva. It's the most difficult to grasp. So therefore, it's not surprising that it's hard to understand, but it is understandable if we accept the vision and the example and the words of Srila Prabhupada, who didn't make it up. He was following his spiritual master, who was following his own father, Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, of how we're going to have a worldwide movement here. This is revolutionary because in India for thousands of years, you just had, you know, village gurus and disciples. And now we have a worldwide movement where even the guru is not absolute. He's accountable in our worldwide movement to a governing body. You don't have that traditionally in India. So that's a central challenge for ISKCON, is how to have these lines of authority, the lines of authority coming from the guru to the disciple, and the managerial line of authority coming from the GBC to, you know, regional secretaries, or now they're calling them zonal supervisors, down to temple presidents, how they can go on and complement one another and not clash. That's a real challenge, but that is the central challenge for ISKCON. And the more we, you know, man up to it and not be compromised by our own personal ambitions or political considerations, this and that, the better off ISKCON will be. Otherwise, we're going to be divided more and more and more along these lines, and it just gets worse and worse until we really address how to do Guru Tattva in ISKCON, and how to have a strong GBC, and how to have strong guru-disciple relationships complementing each other and not clashing. But that's a whole different seminar series. So, yeah, at least I try to address it in this lesson by fictional Prabhupads. And then finally, we're going to move on in the last lesson of the series by talking about how we all have this personal, foundational, intimate relationship with Prabhupada that we can explore per Prabhupada, not by making it up, like the Sahajis do, or not by speculating, but by listening to what Prabhupada himself said. So we'll do that next time, and I don't know when the next time will be. Probably, I would imagine in March, because that's when I'll be back. But you all are going to be in Mayapur. But it doesn't matter, it's all IST. So you have to think, Giraj Prabhu, when we could do it. Anytime in March is fine for me, but it depends on your travel schedule, your what's convenient for your congregation.
Yes, Prabhuji. So I'll coordinate, Prabhuji.
Okay.
I request everybody to please, go through these slides again. And, it's not we read and we hear and we get everything. It's a very important topic, one of the most important sessions in our series. So, and we heartily thank His Grace Suresvara Prabhu for giving us his time and association and all the effort to drill in our mind Prabhupada as a founder Acharya. So we heartily thank Prabhuji by loudly chanting Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. His Grace Suresvara Prabhu ki jai, Jagat Guru Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Gaur Bhaktivinoda ki jai. And before we leave, Prabhu, are you sharing the scripts with the congregation?
Not the script, Prabhuji. Not the script.
Okay.
Not the script, Prabhuji.
It's okay to do that after after each session.
Okay, Prabhu. I'll share, Prabhuji.
Because that'll help, because it's down in black and white. You know, the slides. Not everything's on the slides. The slides are good. They kind of complement each other. The script and the slides. So
Okay, Prabhu.
Okay. Thank you for making my day. Right here, it's only let's see, it's 11:10 in the morning. Where you are, it's 9:40 in the evening, right?
Yes, Prabhu.
Oh my Lord. So have a good rest. And we'll see you sometime in March after Guru Purnima.
Yes, Prabhuji. Hari Bol, Prabhuji.
Hare
You have a
Krishna.
safe and comfortable trip to Mayapur, Prabhuji. Hari Krishna.
Thank you. I'll need it. Those prayers.
Hari
Hari
Krishna.
Bol.
Hari Krishna. Hare Krishna.